John Cena retired on December the 13th, last Saturday, and people are still as hot as ever about the finish of this match. Now, if you guys saw my last video, I broke it down what I thought my immediate reactions were to Saturday night's main event. But yesterday, I was watching Ariel Helwani on his show break down Cena's final match. Now, if you don't know much about Ariel, his show is predominantly a fight show. He talks a lot about fighters in the UFC, but he does have great takes on professional wrestling. He's brought on a lot of different pro wrestlers over the years, namely Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Darby Allin, Karrion Kross, Paul Heyman, and he broke this down yesterday on his show. This is one of those takes that I felt was not his best. You know, Ariel understands the business quite well. However, it almost seemed like he was saying the same things that fans, the angry fans in the arena, were saying, and it didn't really do him any good because it just it doesn't make him look like a professional. If I'm being transparent with you on the booking of this ending, Ariel, he starts it off and he says he believes that this whole idea of a time-honored tradition, he believes that's total BS. That we do not need to continue with this whole idea of the guy leaving the territory or the guy leaving the company needs to put over somebody on his way out. He rejected this idea. He called this hogwash. If you feel that way, I want you to think about this. I want you to really dissect this and think in your head every single time a wrestler who was on top, who had a lot of name value attached to them, Hogan, Austin, Rock, whoever, Undertaker, think of these guys and now think when they decided to put, let's say, the last person over, like the last person they fought with. Maybe it wasn't their retirement match. Maybe it was, another match. What did that do for the person they were putting over? If their name value was so high up, them putting over somebody else left them in a better state. They did that because they knew that they weren't going to be here long enough to continue to carry this company. Someone's got to take care of it. Think about it this way. You know, the holidays are coming up. Christmas is around the corner. You all have traditions that you follow for Christmas. Everybody has a different tradition. Everybody. And what is the point of having that tradition? The point of having that tradition is to keep the family unit intact, to create a welcoming feeling, to create this feeling of Christmas in your household. That's why they have traditions. So this whole concept of let's break the tradition for the sake of breaking it because it's a new time, it's a new generation. Why is it that we need to break traditions if they're not broken to begin with? If they're not broken, why are we trying to repair a tradition or create a new tradition? Is there an issue that you see with the current tradition of the guy that's leaving putting over the younger talent, or the guy that is going to be taking a hiatus and he's going to drop the world title to this guy? Like, do you see an issue with that? Is there a loophole in that way of doing things that needs to be fixed? That we should no longer be doing that anymore? I don't see it because Gunther is clearly in a better spot now. Now the way they book him that's up to creative. Cena has no part in that. Cena's part is what he did on Saturday night. And he was able to take everything that he had and give it back to Gunther. So this concept of, breaking the tradition for the sake of breaking it, and he gets into a couple things that kind of tie in with this as well, which I'm going to get to. But it doesn't hold true in every situation. You see, the finish that he suggested here was that what if we had Cena win the last match and then Gunther comes back to attack him post-match? So basically, where the baby face goes over, and then the camera angle, it's a tight shot on the baby face. He's celebrating, and then out of nowhere you see the heel come back and attack him because he's a poor he's a sore loser. He's a poor sport. He's beating on Cena, and then you have his friends in the back come out to help him out, right? So Gunther gets his heat, but then it's immediately taken away. This finish that he suggested, Ariel suggested, is one of the lamest finishes you could come up with. It's lame. You 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 would have done no good for Gunther. Because here's the thing. Gunther is not LA Knight. Gunther is a heel. This is the type of finish that we would see someone like Vince McMahon do. And that's the concern here, because what was the point of having Gunther face Cena if the match was going to end up this way? Having Cena win and then having Gunther get post-match heat, ultimately to get that taken away after, he gets beaten down by whoever comes out from the back to help Cena. What was the point of that? That would have done no good. He would have come out on Raw and everybody would have been like, "Oh, okay, there's Gunther. Okay, who's he facing next? Okay, cool." There would have been no controversy when you look at the headlines and you watch the news or you read the newspaper, whatever. You got to think about what is going to create a bigger headline here. Is it going to be Cena going over, or is it going to be Gunther making Cena tap out for the first time in 23 years? What's going to make people want to tune into Raw? What's going to make people help the ratings go up? Sure, it's a moment, but that moment could lead to a year-long storyline of this guy taking people out. So Ariel here, again, this is not a very good take by him, and he's looking at it simply as a moment. He's not looking at it as a long-term storyline, which you got to understand. Like, yeah, we don't like Triple H for what he's been doing this year, but you got to understand Triple H is more of a long-term storyline guy than anybody else in this business. We know that. And then Ariel talks about, this is before he mentioned the finish. He said that this whole idea of never give up, having Cena tap out was the opposite. He said no one wanted to see Cena go out like that. Not only does he lose, he loses via submission. So this is probably the one thing that I can understand when fans get upset. They say, this guy's motto was to never tap out. I mean, he was in I Quit matches where he got his body beat down and he never said I quit. But here he's just, going for the tap. You need to focus on the way this man tapped out. It's not just the tap. It's the way he tapped out. Okay? He looked in the camera. He smiled at everybody. The reason Cena tapped out was because this was him officially putting an end to his in-ring character. When you have a guy who lives on never give up, every single night comes out, says never gives up, and he follows through. The night that he does, his character is dead. At least his in-ring character, it's dead. He wanted to make sure that you knew that he's not coming back to wrestle. No amount of Saudi Arabia money is going to bring Cena back to wrestle. That's the message he wanted to send, because he knows Undertaker, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, everybody comes back for another match, one more match, right? They have 5 one more matches. Cena does not want to do that. And if you understand, I think it was in an interview that I was watching. I can't even remember who it was now. I watched so many of these Cena interviews, and he said something about he wants to give the fans closure. They need closure. So what better way to close this chapter of his life and close this character together by tapping out? It was a way to say, it's kind of like, when the Terminator, you remember that scene where the Terminator, he's going in that sort of like ball of fire, because he's killing him off. It's the end of the movie there. This is what Cena was doing. He's killing off the character. It's done now. He's not coming back to wrestle. That's the message he wanted to make mention of. So this whole concept of have him pass out and it would still have the same effect. It wouldn't, because then everybody's thinking in their head, well, Cena could come back, and if he does, who he's going to face is Gunther, because Gunther never actually beat him. He passed out. There would have been no closure. And the last thing Cena wants is to come back. He's hitting 50. He's got a limp. You understand, like, it's hard for him to keep doing this. He legitimately loves to do it because of the fans, but his body is not going to let him do it. He does not want to do this anymore. He does not want to wrestle anymore. He does not. He's done everything he could. It was a sigh of relief when he tapped out for him. So Ariel did say that there was a lot of potential for the retirement run, and it was squandered. Now that I agree with. It was squandered. It wasn't put together in the best way, and there could have been way more they did there. Now I will agree with that sentiment for sure. Now here's the thing. Fans let out their emotions after that match was over. They were chanting BS. Hunter came out. Stephanie came out. Triple H kept looking back over a few times, like, who's it that they're booing? Are they booing somebody here? And then they realized it was Triple H they're booing. And they started chanting a bunch of different things at Triple H. But here's the one thing that they were chanting that I think we're still talking about today, and that is, we want Vince. Meaning Vince McMahon. We want Vince back. And a lot of these fans, like, we get it that they're frustrated. It's kind of like, it's kind of like when you tell your significant other, you go out at night, let's say, okay, and you're going out at night every single night, and you're telling your significant other, well, I'm going out because, we're doing business, or we're getting work done, or whatever. And then they find out one night that you're going out to hang out with someone else. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not doing work here. So you know what ends up happening when that happens. Like, logic goes out the window. We're just focused on, like, getting revenge. We're just focused on letting our emotion out, right? And you're upset. And this is the fans being upset with Triple H. But you gotta be careful with what you chant, because the last time you chanted, we want somebody back, they brought R-Truth back in a matter of weeks and signed them on a new deal. So you gotta be careful, because here's the thing. You guys really don't want Vince McMahon back. The people who are chanting this, you don't really want him back. Yes, you dislike Triple H and his booking. But do you remember what Vince did in his latter years before he was ousted? This is the man that if he came back, he would give us Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for like the 20th time. Year after year after year after year. It was the same main event. He's the kind of guy that would fire some of these talents that are making their name on the main roster. Some of these NXT talent. I mean, I want you to think about this. Do you remember Keith Lee? You guys know who Keith Lee is? That man was supposed to be next in line to take on Brock Lesnar. And what'd they do to him? They killed his gimmick because they put the title Bearcat. That's his nickname, Keith Bearcat Lee. What a joke. That's an absolute joke. This is what Vince thought of Keith Lee. And I want you to think about this. If Vince came back, how do you feel he would treat guys like Obafemi on the main roster? The way that he treated Keith Lee, the way that he treated Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory, how do you think he would treat, supposedly who's supposed to be the future of this company, Obafemi? It's something to think about. Based on Vince's prior record, he could make anything up and say, well, I don't see potential in this guy. Triple H sees potential in certain guys, and Vince does not see potential in certain guys. Vince is the same guy who had some of the most ridiculous storylines, some of the most ridiculous angles on television, which was the reason for ratings dropping, the reason for why people started to tune out. So you've got to sit here and understand you're upset, but you don't really want Vince back. You just want an alternative to Triple H that is not Vince. Vince is the guy that sold the company to TKO to begin with. So if you're upset about what's happening now, it's because of Vince McMahon that we're in this mess. And you guys are asking for that guy to come back. Think about that. It's not Vince who we want back. We want someone in creative that understands professional wrestling in what's now about to be 2026. So they were chanting a bunch of things at Triple H. Unfortunately, this night was supposed to be about John Cena, and I felt as I turned off the television that it was more about the fans making sort of the show about themselves and putting it on Triple H and the entire sort of team instead of keeping it about John Cena. There was this is another thing that I think we spoke about before, but if you guys saw the post show, Jey Uso was interviewed, and this was an unscripted interview with Jackie Redmond. All I'm going to say is this: if you haven't seen the interview, go check it out, and you will know exactly why Jey Uso is likely never to be a world champion again. This kind of behavior is the exact reason why he's not champion anymore, and he won't be champion again. Okay? If you're a little kid, if you're like a teenager, I'm saying, you're watching this, you think it's cool. You think it's cool seeing Jey Uso kind of, be unhinged, like overly unhinged, start cursing. He's clearly intoxicated. Clearly he's intoxicated. I'm sure Jackie can probably smell the alcohol from his mouth, and it didn't do anybody any good because he's there and he's roasting Cena. He's basically bad mouthing Cena. He's talking about his shoes. He's talking about the fact that I don't believe you're retiring. You can't trick me. It was in a joking manner, but it's not something that you say right after you saw him retire. You know what I'm saying? Like it's too soon for people. People are still emotional. So you saying all of that right after, and then deciding to curse, it's not a good look for the company. It's not a good look for Jey. Unless Triple H said something like, "Go out there and say what you want." I doubt he did. Right? I doubt he did. But this is not a good look. If you work, listen. If you're an employee, okay, and you're having a work party, okay, you do not show up to that work party intoxicated because it's a work party. It's going to look bad on your boss. It's going to look bad on your employees, your colleagues, yourself, and that could hinder your own growth in the company because of that one moment. You decided to spin in the face of the reputation of the company by doing this. This is a big deal. I'm not sure if Cena will ever watch that interview with Jey Uso, but if he was ever shown it, he would look at it and say, "This is the guy that I put over at the Royal Rumble to strap a rocket around his waist and give him a chance at a world title. This is the same guy." So it is embarrassing. And I think Jey Uso is, I think he's probably done as being a world title main event. He's going to be where he is right now and stick around. And I'm not sure um, if anybody really cares to see Jey Uso come back into the main event scene. Finally, I do want to talk very quickly about the post show, right? So the post show, Triple H was on the post show. Again, they were chanting "You effed up." They were chanting. They were leaning into a lot of the personal insults, calling this guy Baldy. They were chanting AEW, which I'm not sure why you would want to chant AEW because, dude, AEW's numbers are not as they're just not any better than WWE's numbers. Okay, and every time you want to give Tony Khan any kind of criticism on the way that the product is being handled, he doesn't want to hear it because he thinks everything is great. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to break it to you. You do not grow a company by living in this sort of toxic positive bubble, like everything is amazing and great and tremendous. Okay? The numbers are screaming at you, and you choose not to look at them or acknowledge them. That's a problem. It's a problem for every company, not just AEW, but WWE as well. The thing with WWE is they sold like $5 million at the gate on Saturday night. Their numbers continue to go up. So again, kind of a useless chant. I don't understand why you would chant AEW here. Again, it's probably just emotion. Triple H was laughing in the face of the fans because, first of all, the fans had no idea that this match was booked by John Cena. Cena was the one that picked the opponent and wanted to go out like this because he literally said in his final match, this is all he had say over. Everything else in this retirement tour, he let creative pick for him, except for this one right here. So you think by chanting these chants at Triple H like you're getting to him, you guys got to remember who you're dealing with. Okay, this Triple H was one of the greatest heels in the height of this business. Like, this is not going to get to him. This is not going to change how he runs the product. TKO has a lot of decision makers behind the scenes. And Triple H is what we call the fall guy, the guy who takes the heat for anything. The man in charge. They do this deliberately. Just like for UFC, it's Dana White. If anything were to happen, they're going to blame the guy in charge. And that's the guy that the company puts out there as the guy in charge. I'm sure there's a lot of decision makers backstage that they will never mention. I mean, look. I mean, every time the show goes off the air, you see the producer's name in the credits. Paul Levesque, Triple H. They want you to know that this is the guy in charge. And so you can chant whatever you want at Triple H. It's not going to change the fact that they got $5 million worth of sales at the gate Saturday night. And who knows what numbers they had for merchandise. There was not a single piece of merchandise, I bet. Everything was sold out. This entire year, just because of John Cena's retirement tour, they sold out. The tickets went up because of Cena being in the building. So you chanting "You effed up" to Triple H, he's going to continue to laugh because it rolls off on him. It doesn't really matter to him. So I found a lot of these chants, I found it entertaining. I found it kind of funny, but then at the end of the day, I also realized that this probably is not going to go anywhere because their plan to have Gunther go over was in the works for a long time. I mean, we're talking like months in advance. They already knew this was going to happen. So the fact that fans apparently, you get upset at the last match, but Cena gave you a full year, and we still weren't prepared. So at that point, you got to look at it and say, well, whose fault is it now that I'm still upset about this? Whose fault is it? Cena gave us everything he had. No other wrestler gave us a full year-long retirement tour. That's something to be grateful for. And on his way out, he gave this torch to the guy that we believe is going to run 2026. We believe, based on what we saw and what we can see. You need somebody to do that because Cena's not here. So that's my breakdown. I wanted to break this down. I wanted to let this out. I know this is one of my longer videos because, quite frankly, it's a hot topic. It's a hot topic. I want to hear your guys' opinion. How do you feel about the way that Saturday night's main event went down? If you have any alternative opinions on what Ariel mentioned and what he said about traditions and the way the business is heading and all that, make those comments in the comments below. Leave them down there because I'll have a look at them and I look forward to reading them, commenting on them. Again, this is a hot topic, but only time will tell what happens from here. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you check out all the other content and all the other shorts on the channel. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this with other wrestling fans in the community. Take care, guys.